What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Herr Lounge Podcast. I know that I usually always start with a positive quote, but today I have a positive subject. So we're not going to go there. Today, I'm so excited to have my friend Hilary Casarez, and she's here to talk to you guys. I've told you guys, I've been talking about you for a while about how I wanted to have you on to talk about this. So she's here with Smart Families today to talk about pretty much what all our kids are doing nowadays, which is social media, the iPads, the phones, and, you know, all the stuff that we didn't grow up with that are now affecting our children in so many ways. So thank you for finally coming on. So tell everybody just a little bit about you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Very excited. And before I go into anything, I do want to say this is not at all intended to shame anybody.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Because as parents, as moms, we're faced with a lot of survival moments. Mm-hmm. And so I have 3 young girls myself. I've had to look back on some of the decisions I've made and some of the access I've granted my girls to everything affiliated with iPads, cell phones, you name it. So I've had my own journey. And so I hope what this conversation will at minimum do is open you all up to educating yourself and making a decision that works for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you still let the girls?
So
do they have iPad time? Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about that because I never let Penny have an iPad until she was about 3.5, almost 4 is when she first got exposed to like an iPad. She did do YouTube, but it was on TV. So I kind of was able to control it. Mm-hmm. And then we got a new iPad for work. So I let her start using my old iPad. And we started with only educational programs. There was no YouTube on there. I didn't let her use it for YouTube purposes. And then she got a little bit older and she discovers that you can do YouTube on your iPad. And so she was asking me, can I have the YouTube on my iPad? Maybe it was the way I raised her. She doesn't care for the iPad. She'll get it when she's bored. But my 2-year-old, she loves that iPad. Mm-hmm. Like she wakes up looking for it, almost like her coffee. Yep. That's that's the first thing she does. And that's why I love when she's at school, because there is no iPad at school. They're not even teaching with iPads, and she's 2. So everything is still very manual, very touching, and so forth. So anyway, I'll let you kind of get into.
Yeah, sure. And you hit on 2 great topics, by the way. Every child is different.
Okay.
Number 1. And number 2 is how we learn, right? And so I can go into that in a minute. But so I'm a director at Smart Families. We're a very new nonprofit here in Houston. It was started actually last year at my children's school. They're at a small private school by a husband and wife, who just really started to get very interested in seeing how they can change our community and asking parents to take a pledge, very short at the time Google form, nothing legally binding.
Question, were their children at your kids' school?
They are still.
Oh, Got it. Okay.
And the pledge was to not give your child a smartphone until after 8th grade.
Okay.
And the reason how that is impactful is just not because individuals can make hopefully an educated decision on what they want to do with their child. It's so that mom in 4th grade who's getting pressure from their kid, but knows in her heart, my girl or my boy is really not ready for that device. They can say, oh, you know what? Let me find out how many people in my child's grade signed that pledge. Let me reach out to that mom so I can band with that person, be like, you're right. You know what? I don't want my kid to have this. And 20 other kids in this class also signed it. I feel a lot less pressure to make this decision based on pressure. I make that decision when I'm ready because it's based off how I feel my child can be impacted by it. So we've found over that first year, just the husband and wife, on educating, hiring people to come speak to the school, they already got 50% of the school roughly to sign the pledge. And that's from pre-K through 8th grade. So during that time, they met with the Archdiocese. It is a Catholic school. But anyway, the Archdiocese adopted their program, or they contracted this husband and wife who then created a nonprofit. And now we are currently in 18 schools in the area. And then
all private, or any of them public?
They're currently private because that is who we have first reached out to us.
Okay.
In the spring, we'll be opening enrollment to the remaining 22 schools in the district. And then we're also looking to expand to any school interested and available here in Houston.
Got it. Okay.
So it's been a really interesting journey, because the first event I went to last year was really just to become educated on the topic. There was an amazing speaker who specializes in addiction. And I left there saying, geez, I really need to make some changes in my house.
Wow.
And then fast forward to, I have a marketing background. I was a marketing director at a nonprofit in New York City for several years. And the wife and I were playing golf together. And she told me, hey, the whole district is signing us to bring their program over. And I kind of laughed. I was like, geez, do you have a logo? Like, what are y'all doing?
That's funny.
And, they just kind of came together as husband and wife. So it's been really neat to see. And now with this growth, we're seeing percentages rise in the schools that are signed up with us. We educate, we bring the families together. We hire speakers. It's all funded by us. It does not get touched by any of the school's dollars, nor the parents' dollars.
Wow.
Yeah, which is
That's
an amazing
really cool.
piece.
Yes. Because that information alone can be very expensive to attend.
It is. I mean, the speakers that we have, Dr. Collier, I need to give her a shout out. She's fantastic. She was the speaker who I saw. We paid for her to speak at every school enrolled in the program. Wow. She was a former addict herself and then became a counselor. She works with children with whichever sort of mental complications they're dealing with. And part of it is just to educate the parent on how the brain develops and how addiction is impacted on that child's brain.
Okay, well, that's a great segue, because you kind of told us how who created this program. And so I guess my question is, why did they create this program? Where did they see the need, or why did they see the need? What sparked this idea to this husband and wife to start to implement this program in their school first, but just in general?
So I don't know exact details, but I know, for example, the husband would often say, you can give your child the best education, the best food, the best car. You can try and control everything in their lives as much as you can as a parent. You can support them financially in all their endeavors. There's one component out of a child's development that we actually can't really control too much, and that is their addiction to something. If your child finds something and they have the potential ability to become addicted because of genetics or just their type of personality, like what I'm hearing in your youngest, which is what I wanted to, you can't control if they find something and then they become addicted. It is near impossible for a parent to intervene at that case. So that was just something he was aware of and always just, I guess, fearful of. I don't know the family history there, but he said, I know if I give my child the best of everything, I will always have this one dark component that if I can eliminate as many interactions with potential addictive things in life, I'm going to try and do that.
Which social media totally is, even for adults.
For adults as well. I mean, it is designed, we can talk about addiction in social media, but it's not only just in social media, it's in gaming. It's in how you search for things online. Just Google, for example, you want to find a pair of shoes. Next thing you know, you're bombarded with shoe images on any site you go to. And that's all manipulation of the brain. They know that you're getting some sort of dopamine dump by seeing something that you like or want or are interested in. Therefore, they're trying to hook you in. The mind and your attention is the most valuable thing in the market in the world right now. It's not even your money. It's if they get your mind, they then control you. They control how you spend, and they control what you do with your time. So the Netflix CEO once said, our biggest competitor right now is sleep. It's not Amazon Prime that's creating their own videos and stuff. It's literally they know they want to manipulate you so much to stay on them and watch their shows that their biggest problem is keeping people to stay awake as long as they want.
Wow.
That's why that little message comes up. Are you still with us?
Are you still with us? Yeah. Are you still watching?
Do I still have you?
Now that makes sense. Now that quote.
Wow.
That's
pretty scary.
Yeah, but I think it goes even beyond that too, because I think it's also the color scheme of the actual phone. So the screen time of the lighting from the screen, the light in your
blue
face,
light?
That messes up your sleep too. Like to the point where it's like you have to cut it off even prior to going to sleep, because then you won't even rest the right amount that you need to.
Yeah.
So you could break it down into so many different facets, But the one key basic is just your eyes. Your eyes on these screens, it's not good for you, right? So it's not good for a child whose brain is starting to develop those muscles and those connections. So you're interfering with that, right? You're interfering with and I can go quickly into the science of it, but you're interfering with the development of the frontal temporal lobe, which is the front of the brain, which develops up until the age of about 24. That's when it's complete. And that's when all of your executive functioning skills are grown. And they grow through the dendrites connecting. So you need those connections to happen in order to learn time management, organizational skills, empathy, organization. And if a child is getting dopamine dumps, it's going to prevent those connections, in addition to them just not using them. So although your 2-year-old or your other daughter will be restricted on what they do on their iPad, during that time, they are not using the front part of their brain. They don't need to worry about how long they've been on it. They don't need to worry about organization and spatial skills and empathy, especially think about it. Video games where the person is the first person in a situation where they need to stay alive, all they need to do is think about themselves, because they need to stay alive in these situations where there's like a lot of violence and people attacking them. Those individuals learn zero empathy, right? Because all you're doing is worrying about you.
Yeah.
So if a kid who's coming home from school and they work and they spend about an hour, 2 hours on a video game, that whole time they're not learning any of those other key components in life. In fact, they're continuing to just develop the middle part of the brain, because that's survival. You do that at a very young age. And then those are not developed connecting to the front. So you have these like bigger middle parts, and then the front is getting smaller. And it's not to laugh about, but like if you think of what the brain looks like, we are changing just the whole autonomy of our brain by just not utilizing the way we should too.
Albert Einstein had the foresight to like predict that. Like he said, I haven't found it. It says, I fear the day when technology overlaps with our humanity. The world will only have a generation of idiots.
I mean, I think we're kind of going there.
Cow,
Yeah, he had the foresight to like already know like, oh, we're gonna be dependent on it. Like, and it's even true with just like in my generation, because we knew what it was beforehand to not have it. And I even remember when I was younger, like I can remember back when I was 8, I knew 10 phone numbers like that.
Yeah.
Now I know mine. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know any other ones by heart.
Yeah,
That's so true.
Yeah, we're all unfortunately getting pulled in by it, but you can really see mostly the younger children who now have grown up in it.
So let me play devil's advocate for a second. So I get this whole thing, right? But what about like people that will say, well, no, it's great for motor skills because they're swiping and clicking and etc., right? Or like this is a privilege whenever they've done their homework and have cleaned their room, they get 30 minutes of iPad, for example. So with this pledge, how does that work, I guess? Like,
yeah, it's a good question. There's always different sides to every piece, right? So you want to take that in consideration. But specifically for the pledge, what we've decided to do is just focus on the smartphone.
On the phone.
Because
okay, got it.
One very tangible piece where a middle schooler is not going to walk around with an iPad.
Sure.
Around with a phone.
Sure. Okay.
But in regards to some of those other components of an iPad that people could say is a benefit, like Duolingo, for example, great app. You're teaching your child a second language. That actually increases their executive functioning skills. But without the correct monitoring of it and control, you're just creating another scenario where your child is sitting in isolation, not socializing, and not interacting with people, which really human beings need and the brain requires.
Yeah.
So if you think you can have your child for 20 minutes, half hour, play that game, do whatever it is you want to do, and you know it's safe, you know you've put up parameters in place that they can't get around, absolutely, sure. That's it's hard to argue against. It's just unfortunately in today's age, you're having children really kind of learn how to get around these safeguards. I'll give you a really great story. since we speak with a lot of principals within the program,
Sure.
we often ask, like, what are your biggest concerns? What are some challenges y'all are having? And in many middle schools, you have to bring your phone in and you have to leave it in like a cubby or in a locker. So you're not allowed to sit with it during school.
Okay.
Great idea. Absolutely, you shouldn't be on phone while you're learning science. But they have learned how to put the hotspot on their phone. So they're using their school designated Chromebooks and going around the school's very safe Wi-Fi and then connecting to their phone's Wi-Fi. Is their phone's like sitting in the locker where it's supposed to be, and they have full access to the whole internet throughout the day. So then you might think they're sitting and doing their science or taking notes or doing they're supposed to be. Kids are very smart. Now they're going on to any website they want. They're messaging their friends who are doing the same thing, and they're completely going around this like sophisticated privacy system that these schools have paid a lot of money for. And this one kid is sitting there thinking, oh, no problem. I'll just turn my hotspot on. So it gets very complicated as they get older. They become smarter, and they know what they want to get access to, and they kind of figure it out. And that's why I said with one child, as they're younger, yeah, it's great if you can safeguard it, make sure that's on. But I just heard today the average age that a child accidentally gets exposed to pornography is 9. And at the age of 9.
So church had this whole, at our church, they had like these workshops, and they talked about like it's about technology with your children, right? And so it was kind of like pretty much kind of something like this. And I was in awe of like how crazy it is that they're exposed to it at 9. And then they think that's normal. And then they think, then it trickles down to when they first experience, it's like, well, wait, it wasn't like what I saw there. So now it's like, oh, I want to try what that is. You know what I'm saying? And so that whole pattern was trippy to me because, I mean, Penny is only 4 years away from 9. I would die if she saw that or remotely accidentally something popped up, and you know what I'm saying, she was exposed to that. You know what I'm saying? Even certain things, like even now when she'll say things like I asked her if she said something about a crush, and I said, well, how would you even know what a crush is? She goes, I was watching this girl, and they're like not even that much older, but they're like 12 and 13. They're a whole family.
Okay.
And so it's a family YouTuber, and they're called Ninja Kids.
Okay.
And so there's a bunch of them, but they're different ages, but they're all a family. So the older one was finally going to go on a date with her crush. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? But the youngest is Penny's age. Does that make sense? So the channel, it's a family channel, but it's because they have to do stuff because they have children of all ages. So some of the videos will have things like that, to where now I'm like, okay, you're 5 and you know what a crush is. I don't know that I was 5 and knew what a crush. I mean, I can't remember that far back, but I don't know that I knew what a crush was at 5, but she knew because she asked me about it.
So in general, we're finding as well as, like, to your point, is things are happening with people or children even younger as we go on through society. And one of the key devil advocate components that we always hear when we talk to parents is, okay, fine, you don't want to give my child a smartphone, no problem, but I need access to that kid.
Yes.
So we can unfold that on 2 levels, right? So we all want access to our children. We're also a generation of helicopter parents.
Yeah.
We want to know where they are, what they're doing when they're doing it. I totally get it. I'm the same way. But it puts a little bit of too much responsibility on that child, in a sense where they're now feeling a little bit responsible to be aware of, like, their schedule, for example. So what happens is the parent feels, if my kid's carrying a smartphone around, we're talking now more like middle school, and I'm running late, I can now just call that kid and say, I'm going to be 20 minutes late, just like sit tight. Where back in the day, it's like the school bell rang, you don't go anywhere until your parent shows up.
Yes.
But now we have a false sense of security in the fact, well, my kid's carrying around a phone. They'll be okay. I can get a hold of them all the time, and it's great. But that's not fair to the kid. We need to be the parent that we used to always be and just be there for them when we need to be there for them, and not hope that the phone is going to help bridge that gap of safety and security. So that's one component of these kids are needing to kind of grow up earlier because we're giving them access to things too early as well. And then the parent-child relationship is kind of getting a little bit lost. So that's like one piece we've learned a lot about. And the other thing is you want to give your child a smartphone. You want to be in touch with them. That's great. But there's other phones out there. There's a Bark phone. There's a Gab phone. There's Motorola. There's Verizon. There are phones out there that you can do texting and calling.
And that's it.
Then that's it. And so we have one in our house, and it's what the Smart Family recommends every family do. Go get an old phone, not even an old phone, but reinvigorate the concept of a landline. It doesn't have to be landlined, but it's a cell phone. It sits in my house. You can call me, you can text me, you can call your friend, you can text your friends, whatever you want to do. But it does not have anything else on it.
Just know it's going to take 20 minutes to text 10 words.
It's funny you said that. The founder, because the whole company, we all got different ones, right? So I got Gab, someone got Bark, someone got Light Phone, and then they went with the Motorola one. And the Motorola is the old school texting.
Oh my God.
So the wife was like, I was just I couldn't do it. It was just like taking way too long. But the son, who's never had, was like, didn't bother him because he was just.
That's all he knew.
That's all he knew. And he loves it. He sits, he's in 5th grade. He sends notes to his mom when she's out running a quick errand. Like, there's a beauty to it, right? So the younger exposure, your expectations go higher. You kind of nip in the bud a little bit early. You can delay it.
And that's the key thing, I think, is also that also works together with the addiction is the expectation. Like, think about social media, think about all these different things. It's always setting some type of expectation that they're looking at to where that's when the problems start happening, where we live in like in a whole society that's like, be happy, be happy, be happy. All they see is happy, happy, happy on Instagram or whatever. And then when they feel like, well, hey, my life's not like that. And then now they're dealing with a whole bunch of internal issues because their expectation is, it should have been like that. Or even with the porn, it should have been like that, but it was like this. Yeah. Something's wrong with me. And it's really nothing's wrong with me.
Well, that's when they start to self-diagnose. That's where a lot of the self-diagnosing for transgenders have happened. The anxiety has happened. The depression has happened. I literally just heard a podcast about a detransitioner where she said that when she was transitioning, which is going back to the addiction and going back, it goes back to this. We're talking about a whole grown adult now. But she said when she was first transitioning, the going on social media and the applauding that was like an addiction. She liked it. And so then it was like she got the double mastectomy. Now that was another applauding. So she liked that feeling. And she says, you're always searching for the next, I guess, hit of dopamine. Yeah. And so it's like, and so she's like, when it stopped, she was like, there was nothing else to do. Now she was thinking about getting a fake penis. And when it got to that point, and she did her research at how it does for women, it doesn't function. There's no function to it. Yeah. She was like, "Oh my God, I've run out of things to do." And so that's when the anxiety kicked in. That's when the depression kicked in. Now she was diagnosing herself with some other thing, and so then she went she was like a website creator or something, and her mom was always in the church and just made her start. She's like, hey, I'd like to start a Bible study group where women can just join. Can you create this website for me? And so she started reading like what her mom was doing, and then she detransitioned. Awesome. But my point to that was, it was like, it's kind of what you were saying, is where they're on there looking for some kind of like affirmation, like some kind of like approval from other people. Does that mean from strangers that they don't know? And I think there's adults like that. There's a lot of adults like that.
Like everybody wants some type of approval in some form or fashion.
Yes. And so, that's what I fear most for my children. That's why when you were telling me about this, I was like, this is genius, because I think everybody, I mean, I'm guilty of it. Like I said, I never wanted Penny on an iPad. And then we got a new one for work. And I was like, oh, she can just use the old one, no big deal. We don't travel with them though. So we don't leave the house with them. So the only time I let Sonny bring it is if I know we're going to be going, like we're going to go visit my in-laws who are in Pearland, and that takes us a while to get there, and she's antsy, and so they've seen we have an older Tahoe, so and I don't know how to work it that well either, so I'm sure there's a way to connect my phone so they can watch what they want, but they've watched every Disney movie DVD that we have, so they're over them, they're over watching them on the TV that comes down, so that's when she gets it. But her pediatrician is always like surprised that when they come in, I have crayons or coloring books that I carry in my backpack, so that they're not doing that. And I have those magnetic blocks that go in a bag, and that's what I bring with me.
What's it like when you take the iPad away from her?
Oh man, it's a whole.
There you go.
You know what I would do? Because I had to go pick up my son from Odessa when I lived in San Antonio. When I'd go back and forth, that's 5 hours. I got smart, and I would take him to a park, and I'd tire the hell out of him. And then by the time I got him in the car, I'd get him something to eat. And then by the time we got back in the car, he's asleep for most of the ride. And then that's like a little remedy is to tire him out.
So
my daughters have way too much energy. They nap for a little bit.
The same way. And she used to be like, ooh, I'm going to play this one game, Mom. Or she's into photography. Let me watch this one photographer, YouTuber. Mm-hmm. And for a little bit, I was like, that's great. Look how amazing this is. And then I'd go to take it away from her, and it was like meltdown city. Mm-hmm. And excuse me, I was like, girl, you do not make it any easier on me to give this ever back to you again. Mm-hmm. I'm rewarding you, and look at your behavior. Mm-hmm. And that's where kind of like a light bulb went off. Like, this is an addiction. This
is a problem, yeah.
And if I take it away from her, this is the melt. Her body is physically having a reaction to it. So there's some information out there. It's like, if you drink, for example, if you're drinking like night to night, right? So if you have one drink, it takes your body, I think, 3 days to totally rid itself of that alcohol. If you drink consecutive nights, you're looking at weeks or so, right? Because your liver needs to cleanse itself. Otherwise, it gets into your bloodstream. That's when people get really ill if you're really, really drinking. Cocaine is the same way. You do consistent nights of cocaine, it's going to take your body a long time to get rid of. It is the same concept what we're talking about, right? You're absorbing all of that like dopamine and then giving yourself a high. Yeah. It may not be a chemical that we can see, but it's happening in the brain. So the scary piece is we're now starting to affiliate smartphones, for example, with tobacco use, right? 50s, 60s, and 70s. It was very cool to smoke cigarettes at the age of 15, 16, 17, right? Then they made it 18 to buy a cigarette. Then finally, boom, in the 80s, it was like, this is killing us. This is killing our lungs. This is killing our throats. This is terrible for you. But you could tangibly see cancer. You could tangibly see the impacts of smoking. We are finally starting, I think, to get to the point where there's enough research to see the impact on a brain, to see the depression, to see the anxiety. Forget the dangers, the access to people and what's going on. That's a whole other world, but it's an important one. And will it get to a point where it became socially faux pas to smoke in public? Remember, it used to be okay to smoke everywhere. I mean, I'm older, but it was like you could even smoke on an airplane when I was growing up. Yeah. Then enough came out where you started to be like, ooh, that person's smoking.
Yeah. And
then be like, ooh, I don't want secondhand smoke. I know that's not good for me. I envision in a hopeful way where we start to realize, at least for children, it's the same concept. You may not see the cancer that's forming, but there are impacts to your child's body that are being done by too much usage. And I know it sounds extreme, but if you were to really kind of read up it on your own and understand the science of it, I think you'd start to feel the same way.
No, I mean, I see it. I see it.
It's a scary correlation.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's happening. There's so much research now. I feel like the pendulum is just starting, and we're seeing, I think, for your kids, as they grow up into their teens, there'll be enough information, enough people on the same page that's going to really help you.
Well, just think about whenever internet was introduced to actual cell phones. Like, when was that? Like, in like
I don't know, but it was so slow.
So it's only been but still, it's only been like 10 years, and look how far we are.
Exactly.
And this is research finally coming out to where it's like, oh yeah, look, and it's only 10 years in. It's like, this is probably the worst kind of addiction because it took us forever to figure out about cigarettes, and this only took us 10 years to figure out like, oh, this is bad.
True. Yeah,
this is horrible.
And it's getting worse. Like, there was a really sad story of this young boy grew up in a, like, not that religion matters, but very close religious family. They used to pray together, eat together. It was early teens. He got a message from what looked like one of his friends on Instagram. It was a girl, and they private message. And she said, "Can you take a picture of your private part," whatever. And he thought, "Oh, I kind of like this girl, like, although you never should, no matter what." He did. Turned out it was like some person in a third world country. You could see who you're connected to, right? So this organization and these group of people saw, oh, he's connected to Jessica. I don't know her name. Let's take her head and let's emulate what she would look like, and made an AI interactive experience with this young boy. And then turned around and said, okay, by the way, this is not Jessica. We have your picture and we're going to share it unless you give us money, right? And they had an actual number. This all happened within like 12 hours. So the parents were asleep. This happened while they had just gone to sleep.
Oh, I know this story. He committed suicide, right? I saw that. Where did I see that? Damn, it was on some kind of YouTube video.
And so now it's getting stronger. So now you have like your normal, we know a lot about cyberbullying. We know about children who are being, convinced to run away with people. There was a boy who ran away last year through video gaming and taken across state lines. 11-year-old was taken into Denver. And so we know about those dangers. Crime Stoppers is a huge organization. They go around the country and talk about it. But now you have AI, and it's like a whole other level. We as adults cannot manipulate it. We don't know the difference between AI and reality. How can you expect a kid? It's impossible. So it's quite scary. Like, if you're struggling getting off Instagram, how do you think your 11-year-old is feeling?
And they don't know anything before it too. That's the other thing, is like they didn't know what it was like to grow up rewinding movies.
Totally.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and all kinds of stuff.
And I know
commercial
that
break.
Yeah. And I think we're lucky to know, I think we're lucky that we're from an era that we saw the internet come about, right? Yeah. And we've seen, like, we can appreciate, because I used to have, one of my props here used to be a dial phone that was like this.
Totally.
I don't know where it is anymore. Is it over there? It's over there. But I used to have it here, and it was, for me, the reason I'm big time into antiques, but the reason why I used to like to have it there, it was because it was my reminder of communication. Like, don't forget, yes, this is fun, but like, it was a reminder to me, and my kids will never know that. And it's funny because I just saw a video on Instagram, and it says, it was basically like the child was like, look, the dad told the daughter to look back to be able to reverse. It's like, why? I have a camera here. And he was just like, no, you still need to look back.
Yeah.
And he's like, we didn't have those when I was like, she's like, well, how did you look back to reverse? And he goes like this. And he's like driving, and he's looking back the whole time. I was like, oh my God, I remember my uncles, everybody did that.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a camera growing up.
It's the safest way to actually reverse. We're all guilty of it.
We're so guilty of it. Like, I'll just look for, like, to make sure what I'm seeing here is the same thing as back there, So I'll look, and I'm over there. And my sister drives an older 4Runner, so she doesn't have a camera. And it's so funny. So I'm like, oh my God, like, you're getting so close. She's like, I don't have a camera. You do. She's like, I think I know now. Like, basically saying, like, you've relied too much on your camera to start going beep, 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 beep when you're too close to something, It's so funny. But, like, I just feel like we were fortunate enough to, like, because for me, I've had so many conversations about this, is for me, I have a love-hate relationship with social media, right? I have to do it for business, but I really don't like it. Like, I think it's because it's just like a lot, you know what I'm saying? It's too much to keep up with, you know? And so it's like, for me, it's just like, it's become one of those where I hate it and I don't really like it. And so when I'm searching for something, right? Like, oh, I'd like to, like, okay, I'm going to give an example. We're doing the Grinch theme this year for Christmas, right? So I was like, oh, let me go look to see other Grinch themes to see what they've been doing. So I'll get on and look there, and I'll look on Pinterest and stuff like that. So then I'll do that. But it's like, I have no desire just to get on. Like, I'll scroll and then I'll be like, I've been scrolling. I've already seen the same shit. Like, why am I still scrolling?
It's a time suck.
You know?
You don't get that time back.
Well, think about it too. Like, you do it for work, so you can get off of it because it's like you associate work with it most of the time, while other people associate it as their addiction. Like, meaning they worked all day. This is their sense of freedom. Like, oh this is my enjoyment. So this is the fun thing. And so they get away from it, and that's why they don't sleep or they don't have enough time to do anything, is because that's their alcohol. That's their porn. That's their thing. This is what they do.
That's exactly right.
And I didn't, she's my good friend, right? I mean, she's my college roommate, and she's always lived out of the country, right? And so she and I keep in touch through social media, but I don't do Facebook. I only do Instagram. I have Instagram because you have to have it in order to, whatever. I mean, Facebook in order to function with the Instagram app or whatever. So I don't ever get on. And then she came into town. We're chit-chatting. And I said, how's your mom doing? She goes, she passed away. I was like, bitch, quit playing. I said, that's not funny. And she's like, I know it's not funny. I'm not playing. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I can't believe you're telling me that. Like, this is your mom. And she's like, yeah. And then I go down the rabbit hole to see, and it was posted on, you see, I don't get on there. I don't go and look, and you know what I'm saying? And so I never knew that. And I said, I'm your friend. I can't believe you didn't text me to tell me that.
Human interaction.
And
we're losing that. That's not even normal in the sense where you even feel guilty for that. If you're saying the word friend, you have a hardship in life. Like, we benefit from having a friend involved in these things.
Yeah.
And on both sides, we're failing. We're failing because we can't support our friends because we don't know half the time what's going on. And then our friends aren't getting the support they need. So it was always like old school mentality. It takes a community. Yeah. You have to remember, we were not designed as human beings, especially as moms, to carry the burden of our children alone. It was always a community thing. Way back in like the generation of we were living in huts, like, you wanted to learn to hunt, there was someone out in your little tribe that would teach your son how to hunt. It was not up to mom to do it all. Yeah. But now we feel this, we can do it all, and we can't, and we have everything because technology is giving this false sense, and we're no longer interacting the way we should with those in our community. We're losing it. Well,
because I remember for the longest, I used to feel super guilty for having a nanny. Right? Like, you should not have a nanny. Like, my mom didn't have one, no one had one. So why should you have one? And then I was like, wait a fucking second. Like, my mom didn't have a nanny, but she had my grandma, who my grandma would come help and come pick us up. You know what I'm saying? When she needed to do something, or she would drop it, or to drop us off, or, you know what I'm saying? Then the lady next door became our babysitter, because we moved a little bit further from my grandmother. Exactly. So, you know what I'm saying? So then I was like, wait a second. It's just got a fancier word now, right? Because we just made this whole nanny name. I mean, I know nannies have been a while, but now it's like a given. Yes. It's an actual job description. It's no longer your friend, your grandmother, your aunt, somebody who was your circle. Now it's extended to, you know what I'm saying, to hiring someone, and I just kind of like thought to myself, like, wait a second, like, I do need help. I do need help because I'm just not raising them. I'm also trying to be an entrepreneur, and you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to, there's a lot that goes to it. And, even a stay-at-home mom needs a day off. Like, she needs, somebody to, say, a neighbor or a group of girlfriends who like when you told me the other day, I was like, you said, I think, oh, my daughter's been at her friend's house all day playing because you had something to do, right? And I was like, how do you find these circle of friends? I like was asking her, I'm like, I don't have friends that I can just go leave my kids at. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I always rely on my nanny. Like, it's like, hey, can you stay a little bit later today? You know, cause I have this to do, or like, hey, you're not going to be able to leave today at this time because, you know, Pete's not able to, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, everything I think has changed, and it's so sad. Go ahead, Juan. I'll let you.
There's a human connection that we're missing now to build those circles, and because we're not doing that, that's how we're so different. There's like a give and take in life, and I think right now, like we're in this generation of just taking. We take, and we meaning like all this happy, be happy. We're not paying any tolls of the hardships. Like there's not that hardship is what makes things happy. Meaning you're gonna be sad, you're gonna be hard times. But if you're not going through any of those, you can't appreciate the happy, which really messes with your mind to the point of where you're like, well, why ain't I happy? And then you're really self-diagnosing and trying to figure out what's wrong with you. And there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that we've made hard times and being sad bad when they're actual human emotions that we have to experience. And we're trying to keep our kids so happy that we're actually doing them a disservice by not even being able to holistically live in a way. It was like, you have to go through that. You have to go through that. That's something you have to do to develop to the next level. Like, that's just what it is. You can't be happy all the time. You can't be doing these. You can't have all these reward systems all the time. You got to go through hard shit. Like, it's just the way it is.
Well, yeah.
You just nailed in a training this morning with, again, Dr. Collier. She talked exactly about that, the reward system and being an authoritative parent, right? So you have to have authority. It has, and if you're a passive authoritative parent, it actually creates more problems for your child down the road. And part of being an authoritative parent is a reward system. And studies have found, and this is great for the children of your age, right? Because this is when they start understanding rewards, incentives, a sense of accomplishment, right? So if you give your child a Barbie, for example, because you can't stand them asking you anymore at Target, you are no longer allowing them to understand their importance in life and their ability to accomplish something and how that feels when you actually accomplish something, because you've now rewarded them without them having done anything, right? So that goes on. And then they found for children who are being rewarded without any of the accomplishments tied to it, they have higher risk of depression, higher risk of other emotional issues down the road, and even relationship challenges, because they're used to getting whatever it is what they want, even though it's not a good feeling anymore, right? So they no longer get that good feeling when they get that reward because they haven't worked for it.
And think about it like this too. I've said this before on the podcast, I think, but up until they're 8, basically, like, kids are basically like dogs, like, and like their thought process is like a dog. Basically, the reward system, it also has a time delay on it to the point where it's like, if you reward a kid within something that they just did really good within like I think it's like 30 seconds or something, they will learn faster because they're like, oh, I get this when I just did that. Okay, cool. And they can learn faster. If you do it within a minute, it's a lot harder for them to learn, but they can still learn. If you do it after a minute, they don't know why they got the reward. They just give them a reward. They don't associate like, oh, I did something right. So you gotta. It's also like have that reward system, but it's also a time thing if you wanted to do it faster.
This weekend at church, they kind of talked about these things and how like anxiety and depression is kind of has just become so popular now, right? And so this goes back to what all of us are kind of saying. The pastor said this, and I'm going to butcher it. I don't think I'm saying it correctly, but basically he said, you gotta help your child build the road to success, not make their road to success. In other words, you don't like make everything easy for them to get to wherever they're trying to get. You got to give them just the tools. Give them the tools to teach them to understand. Like you said, there's going to be hardships. There's going to be times where it's not going to go your way, but it's not your job to come in and just fix it because that's how lessons are learned, and that's how you learn from your mistakes, and that's how you learn to not do something again, or whatever the case may be.
That goes to that saying, the give a man a fish in a day. That you feed them for a day, but actually teach them how to fish. They feed them for a lifetime.
For life, yeah. It's basically, yes. Go into explaining like the executive functioning skills, because we're kind of in that subject right now. So I know it says that children aren't born with these skills. They're born with the potential to develop them. So I kind of want to talk about, because it says there's 10 executive functioning skills for success. Can you kind of help us like go through those? And the first one is planning. So what does that kind of consist of?
Yeah, so when you're born, like I said, the middle part of your brain is going to develop first, and then the second will be your frontal temporal lobe, and that is where those executive functioning skills are developed. So we, as babies, know we need to breathe, start to learn to walk, so we're able to move our bodies. So there's your mobility. And then we learn to talk, right? So and then we learn to eat, right? Those are survival pieces to a human being. Then there's this whole other side that is what separates humans from most animals. You're going to see some executive functioning skills potentially in something like a chimpanzee, or maybe more than I'm sure I'm even aware of. But for the most part, that's why human beings are the way human beings are. It's just so special. So when you don't allow your brain to do any of them, right, you have to actually do it for your brain to develop. You cannot play basketball without actually picking up a basketball. You cannot plan without ever having planned in life. You cannot organize your schedule and time management until you actually do it. So these skills need to be done not only once or twice, but repetitively for the brain to do them the right way. And they're not being used because if you look at the amount of time a child could use a device unregulated, there's only so many hours in a day, right? So you're in school about 8 hours. You come home hoping you pick up on some of those things at school, but your mom or dad also needs to work with you on some of them, right? Because they're busy learning math. They're busy learning whatever other key topics that need to be taught in school.
I feel like, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure there's a lot more that, so I currently volunteer at a school to help tutor children to read. And we're talking about kindergartners, okay? And so these kindergartners are not able to even identify letters, which tripped me out because my girls, I did that with them early on. You know what I'm saying? And we're talking about now you're 5 and you're struggling in school because you can't identify like letters. And I get it. I think we talk about there's some parents who are single parents, so it's hard, and they have multiple children, so that's even harder. So, I know a lot of those variables come. Yeah. Absolutely. So I decided to ask the director if I could bring my iPad to use this program called Endless Alphabet. Oh, cool. And so that's how I taught my girls their alphabet. And it's just, you grab the letter and it does the sound the whole way as you're matching it to the A. So it'll go the whole way, you know what I'm saying? Until you actually match it, right? And so when I was sitting there with them, he's 5, so I do the bilingual. And so I was tripping because he said, hey, can I do this on my mom's phone? I said, do you use your mom's phone a lot? And he's like, yes. And I was like, okay. He's like, my mom gives me her phone when I'm at home. Yeah. And so I guess that's the equivalent of the iPad, right? And so I feel like we have so many children struggling in school, especially in public school, right? To where I feel like even that plus social media plus gadgets plus all that, it goes back to what it's saying. It's like none of those skills are even developed yet as it is. They're struggling with just learning, with the basics. And now you're going to add in the gadget. So what does our future look like? And it's so scary. You know what I'm saying? It's so scary that there's this guy that went viral, and my sister sent me this TikTok, and it's this teacher. And he's like, he's so funny because the way he talks, he's like, listen, I have a 7th grader still on a 4th grade level reading. your child and just goes off about how your child was fourth grade problem since fourth grade. And you as a parent, you want it to be my fault, but I can only do so much. And he said, I can put 1,000,000 zeros in there. Like I can give him zeros for every assignment. The school district is still going to pass them. So they're going to go on still not learning that. So can you imagine if the school system is doing that? Now we're allowing just this gadgets to teach them.
That unfolds something that we have spoken a lot about, and it's a very difficult topic because you have so many layers there, right? That is an onion. That is a very scary onion to unpeel, but it is prevalent. It needs to be tackled. So for two things, for example, there's a district we're speaking to currently that's interested in bringing our program to them. Mm-hmm. And we asked the principal, what is your key concern? Mm-hmm. Why? Mm-hmm. Why do you want us? And she had no problem with her answer. She said, I want it for my teachers. And we were like, okay, well, yeah, we do work with teachers. She's like, no. My teachers are dying. They are on the front lines of this generation of children who are coming in, who have the lowest attention spans we have seen in history of human beings. They do not get excited over the work that they need to learn because their dopamine thresholds are way out of whack. You think they want to learn 2 + 2, 4 + 4. When at home, they're whizzing away and all this like fun, cool stuff. They can't retain their attention. They can't engage them. And then to add to your comment, you have parents on the back end first to show up to say, you have failed my son. They can't learn to read. Where's the accountability? Who is going to say, I messed up? Is it the parent? Is it the school? Is it the superintendent? It's society. We're all a victim to it, but yet we're afraid to make a decision that's right because it may not sound cool. It may not be what we want to do. But we're at the point where what is happening with our world? This is not just here in the United States. It is all over everywhere. China is on the verge of banning certain apps for their children. 1800, it is banned. London is England is passing legislation. This is a worldwide issue. The United States has done nothing. What are they doing? We have a few states currently suing Meta because they're aware. You have targeted children. That is a endangerment to children on purpose, and that is their one key that they're able to sue them for. But otherwise, it's just a free-for-all. There's no accountability. So parents are struggling because not everybody has the ability to sit down with their kid and do the ABCs because they're working 2 jobs because economically it's a challenge for them. So handing the phone over allows them to get those 4 extra hours of work in. We get it. I get it. You have unfortunately fallen into the times, and it's so easy to do. But that kid is not getting the justice they deserve to grow up in a healthy environment, not because of the parent having to work a lot, it's because they're giving something that's just addictive and bad for them. And we don't see it yet as that cigarette. We don't. So.
Yeah, and what does that look like in 10 years?
So you can look up the Hikikomori disease, I think it's called. I may be saying it wrong, but in Japan, there are, I think, over 1 million adolescents, we're going to call them teenagers, young 20-year-olds, who society has basically, their families have given up on them. They are partitioned off in their home. This is on Google. This is very easy to find. They live behind curtains. And they have just fully resided to that individual being just addicted to technology. And so they're like in adult bodies, but they have the capacity of like a 7-year-old. There's no maturity there. There's no conversational skills, and families just, okay. And so you see pictures of them. That's what can keep happening. I don't think we'd hopefully be as extreme there because I think the education is out there and we kind of know now we can't go down that path, but people in Japan have, and they're giving up on.
I mean, it's just like somebody that's addicted to heroin. I mean, you can't help them. Like, there's a lot of things like where if it's not checked, and the thing is, the first part of checking that is like taking this difficult conversation and just being real about it, and then actually acting accordingly. the problem is like our generation's like, oh, I want better for my kids. I want better. Like they have this. I work so hard to give them this, to give them this. I didn't have this when I was a kid. Here. And we made them consumers. We made them spoiled. And now this is what we have. And so in order to go opposite route is to try to figure out, okay, what can I do to, I mean, honestly, you kind of have to guide the hardships and stuff. Like I've literally had to like try to sit down and figure out, okay, what is my kid doing? And how does he do this? Okay, let's try to get you to think like this. And really it's talking. That's another thing is the communication level with them is like figuring out, okay, what are you into? All right, let me get into that too. So I can communicate with you based off of things that you're into and things like that. So you got to really try hard just to even match any of that. I mean, just with the alphabet, like with Caleb, the little boy I told you, he was 3 years old. I had him saying the alphabet.
Yeah.
I mean, like
they should be. I mean, I'm not trying to knock any parent for not, you know, but I just feel like.
No, that was hard. I had to like spend extra time because I had to go to work, then come back, and then I had all the kids. It was like
time.
Yeah, it is time consuming.
I was doing it I was working.
Yeah, and to me though, that's why at the very, it's funny how I don't know. Well, you have 3, so you kind of can get it right. Like the first one, you just want to make sure like you're so different and strict, and you know it's kind of like. I didn't let anybody buy a toy if it wasn't an educational toy, right? Like, do not bring anything that's not educational in here. Like, I don't need her to know about anything else, right? That was that. And so, you know, and then Sunny comes along and her sister's already kind of, you know, has the iPad, has, you know, other things that she's into. So she's being exposed to what her sister is into, right? She's not into like Coco Melon. You know what I'm saying? She's into Wednesday Addams and she's 2. You know what I'm saying? Because her 4-year-old sister, or 5-year-old sister is doing the Wednesday Addams dance. Does that make sense? So, I always feel like guilty and I feel like I'm not trying hard with her, but it was funny because I've said this before. There's no way I would have ever put Penny in a preschool at 2 years old.
We all change our parameters.
And so I saw early on with Penny, she would let me sit with her and we would do things together. Yeah. Sunny, on the other hand, requires a little bit more of like, this is boring. Like, this is not fun. Why would you think this is fun? So I had to find a different way. Like, for example, like coloring the letter A was not fun to her, but drawing the letter A was fun to her. You see what I'm saying?
You took the time to learn each child.
Yes.
And help accommodate. And this was a conversation I was having with somebody recently who asked me about the pledge because she's at the school and she wanted to know more about it. Not every parent is the same.
Yeah.
So we assume everybody's doing what you're doing, right? But then you go and you volunteer and you realize, oh my gosh, no, that's not the case.
Yeah.
So this parent was saying to me, why do I need to sign a pledge? I don't want anybody telling me what to do with my kid. Okay, no. We're not telling you what to do. She didn't quite get the fact that she was blessed with a group of friends whose kids were all in the same grade, and she had already spoken with her friends' moms, and they had already decided collectively they weren't going to give the kids smartphones until later in life. So at the end, when she said that, I said, after like an hour of talking about it, I said, do you not get what you just said? What you have with your friends, not everybody has. And that's what we want to give to an entire school. So we all think that everybody has what we have. But that's not the case. Not every mom or dad feels comfortable saying no to their kid. They just don't. It's a problem in society. We want to cowtail, we want to provide, we want to spoil, we want to give what we didn't have. Whatever the reason is, they don't know how to say no. We had a dad say, thank you. I can't say no to my kid. But now I've signed this and I feel like I have a way to say no, which is scary. But we're all different and you have to accept that. So, when you look at that and you think parents, they have their reasons, they struggle, but if we could help them with such an important topic, I mean, we want to educate them, come out and talk about it, but we want them to know that they're not alone. We all feel maybe a little bit weird by saying, no, I'm not going to give my kid that, because it's not what society is doing right now. We're offering our kids everything because they want to see the benefit of what we've done. We've made money, we've accomplished, we're doing it. So therefore you should have the baddest and the best. But that's not always the best situation for them. And it's hard. But there's hope.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Her Lounge Podcast. This is producer Juan. Just want to let you guys know this episode was going close to 2 hours long. So we did decide to split this episode up. The second part of this episode will be available next Wednesday on the free episode. If you do enjoy listening to Her Lounge Podcast, join the Patreon and become a member of the Discord. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for all the support.